Boston Marathon is one of the hardest majors to run a PR. This race is about running with discipline, having a plan, and not just going out there and racing aggressively. Today, I'm going to share some tips on what you can do to run your best race this year at Boston. My tip number one is making sure you know your limits and you run within your means. So being honest about your fitness is really key. Boston is not a guaranteed PR course. You really need to know the course and execute well and have a plan to get the most out of yourself on the day. So adjusting your expectations before race day is really key. Knowing where you were at in your training, what are some of those key workouts that indicate your fitness level, and then having a plan and knowing how to execute on that plan throughout the race. So if your expectations are off, then your pacing is going to be off, and that's really going to put a damper on your race execution, and you're not going to run your best race. Some of the ways you can know your limits going into the race is what are some of those longer workouts you've done that will give you an idea of what your lactate threshold pace is, both your lactate threshold 1 and 2, so your marathon race pace, and then also your hour race pace. You can pump those into some calculators and you can figure out where your marathon pace really should be based on those benchmarks. You can also just go off of benchmark workouts. If you've done like a 12-mile tempo at marathon pace, you know what that feels like. You know that that's probably your actual marathon pace. And then you can go into the race having that as a benchmark where you can go up and down based on there's a hilly section, there's a downhill section, etc. Tip number 2, stay off of your feet. You're not gaining fitness on race week, so make sure you limit your walking. The expos particularly can be pretty taxing. You have to stand in line for quite a while just to get in. Then you have to wait in lines. Once you're in the expo, you get enticed into buying things and having different conversations. So try to limit your time at the expo as much as possible. Obviously, you want to enjoy it, but don't go overboard. Prioritize your sleep and recovery and make sure that you protect that fitness that you've built over time in your training. So don't waste your fitness on stupid little mistakes that you can control, like going for a really long walk the day before because you've never been to Boston and you want to do some touristy stuff. Really prioritize your sleep, prioritize your recovery, make sure you're carbing up, and just protect everything you've built, like I said. So the main key thing there is don't get carried away. The Boston Marathon's really exciting. Go to a shakeout run, but then go back, take a nap, lay down, kick your feet up. Hopefully you have an Airbnb or a hotel that'll give you some quiet space where you can truly relax and absorb the race day environment when you're out, but then take that back and just channel it into having a really good race strategy and going out there ready on Monday. And so my third tip is part of protecting that fitness and protecting that strategy going into the race is going to include having a good logistics plan, making sure your fueling is on point and you're set up to have a good day. So those early buses where you have really long waits, sometimes you'll show up at 6 a.m., maybe you don't run until 10:30. You've got a really long time between when you have to leave the house to get down to that bus, wait in line to get into the bus area, wait for the bus, get on the bus. It's a long drive out to Hopkinton. So make sure you have a plan, you know those timetables, and then in terms of fueling, bring your fuel with you. If you know that you perform really well when you've eaten 2.5 hours before a race, you've had a good meal. Bring that meal with you because you're likely not going to be able to find something easily within 2 hours before the race. Making sure you stay warm if it's cold or you stay cold if it's warm. The weather can be pretty unpredictable. So just don't try anything new. Make sure you have a contingency plan for any potential areas where there could be mistakes or unanticipated events, and stick to that plan. If the race morning feels chaotic, you probably didn't have a good plan in the first place and you didn't do any due diligence prior to the race to understand what you're getting yourself into. If you're watching this video and you're on YouTube, you're probably a learner. You're probably really diligent about taking notes. How much fuel am I bringing? Where am I putting it during the race? Do I have pockets for all my gels? How am I carrying that to the bus? What's allowed on the bus and what's not allowed? What's the timetables for when I get picked up versus when I get to race? When am I going to jump into a warm-up, and how many strides am I going to do? How long am I going to go for a warm-up? Are you doing it alone or are you with friends? Coordinating those things. So all of these things can throw a big wrench into your plans if you don't have them planned out properly. Make sure you take all those notes, write it down beforehand, and then really execute well on that race day. Okay, so those first tips are all around preparation, protecting your fitness, making sure you're prepared for the actual race. Once you get onto that bus and you're going out to the start line, it's about execution. And on that plan, make sure you have a solid plan. If you're working with a coach, make sure you are talking to your coach about your pacing, your fueling, just your general mindset going into the race and how you're going to run. So that leads me to my next one, which is running by effort and not by pace necessarily. Make sure that in your training, you want to practice running by effort in your training. Because when you go out in the Boston Marathon, the course has some different sections, and I'll actually link to that video so you can watch my specific course breakdown. But those specific sections, they have different demands, and you're going to want to have a plan for each of those demands. And running by effort will allow you to dial in to the right pace, regardless of what your watch says. So making sure that you're tracking what that course breakdown is, go watch my video, please, and make sure you know each section really well. And then also, make sure that you know the conditions. Make sure you're planning based on weather to adjust that effort. If it's really hot, your heart rate's going to be high, your hydration intake is really going to need to be high, but also it'll affect the way your stomach absorbs your fueling. So all those things will probably slow down your pace quite a bit if you're running into a headwind versus maybe you have a tailwind. Maybe it's a brisk morning and you might feel really good and you've got a tailwind. Those things can really help you figure out, am I able to run, am I running within my means, or am I able to run within my A goal time, my B goal time, etc. And you'll know how to pace that across the course overall. So the earlier you get to adjust those things, the better your race is going to go, because you're not going to be thinking during the race, oh my gosh, what am I going to do because this just happened? Or I'm feeling really terrible, it's hotter than I expected. How much am I going to adjust my pace or my effort? Plan those things ahead of time, know how to adjust by effort, and just dial into the right effort in those certain areas of the course that are more demanding or less demanding. That leads really well into not getting caught up in the moment. That's another thing that can be really easy to do at a lot of these major races. So the course is going to be packed with spectators, and you also are going to have a really high energy among everyone around you that's running. These are great things because it's going to push you and you're going to be able to run better than you would without them. However, if you allow that to get you to deviate from your plan that you set out before the race, this can really pull you in the wrong direction. Make sure at the beginning of the race, there's a lot of downhill. I go into that in my course. You can really get pulled into some faster running that can set you up for a bad race later in the day because of the demands later in the course. So just because everyone is racing early does not mean that you should just be dialed into that pace that you know you can run based on your training, based on the fueling practice you've done, and your relationship with your coach. Hopefully, if you have a coach, they'll be able to give you some insight into what type of effort you should be running early on so that you have enough to really push at the end and absorb all of that Boston atmosphere when you run into the city. And the last tip on execution is fueling early and sticking to the plan, making sure that you start your fueling early and you're consistent to what you practiced in your training. Don't experiment, don't adjust it based on the race day climate or anything like that. Say, oh, I'm going to take an extra gel because I think I'm going to need it. If you didn't try that on race day, that's probably a really bad thing to do. Just focus on dialing into that effort, dialing into the exact amount of carbs and sodium and hydration that you did in training. And all of those things will come together much better if you have a plan and you execute well on it. So bring all of them together, be realistic, show up feeling fresh, absorbing all your training and preserving it. Stay controlled and execute on your plan. This is simple, but it requires that pre-planning ahead of time. And make sure that you do those things before you get to Boston, because once you get there, it's going to be a whirlwind of things that you're going to want to experience, and that's a good thing. So make sure you set yourself up for success in terms of enjoyment and being able to absorb the Boston atmosphere by planning ahead. So those are all my tips on how to run a successful Boston Marathon this year. I wish you the best of luck. Go out there and remember, you are planning, you're preserving your fitness, you're showing up ready to race, but also ready to execute on a plan. And having all of those things come together truly will give you the best race you can possibly imagine. So if you're looking for a course overview, check out this video over here. I'm going to link to it, and watch my course breakdown. It's got all of the different sections of the course and what to expect and a pacing strategy for how to run them. Go check it out. Subscribe if you want more. Appreciate you watching.